hope at my TED Talk I look smart. I hope I don't totally goof up. My boss gave me a raise that might not be as much as the other people in my office, but I wonder what that means. Stupid, stupid, stupid. I don't like it when I care about what other people think. I should really go out and exercise today. I could go biking. The pollen count's too high. I'll have allergies. I really should lose some weight. But when I go to Manchester today, I hope I stop and get chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream. Shady Glen has. I did not know how much my mind flits from topic to topic, like a monkey swinging from tree to tree, until I started meditating. At the Empty Gate Zen Center in Berkeley, California, I sat on a cushion and tried to just breathe and count my breaths. And that sounds simple, but I watched my mind wander the way I tried to just model. I believe that many of us have all sorts of chatter and drama in our mind. And I want to ask the question today, how might we cut through the chatter, the drama, the up and down cycles to be more in touch with what's real and true and here? And I want to start with something that's very real to me. I define real as that which actually exists in the world and not just invented in my head. I want to wonder, how do we get closer to actually being there to experience that? Chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream is very real to me. Watch what I layer onto it and see if you do the same for anything in your life. When I write, I sometimes feel very stuck or frustrated. Or I'm doing house chores I don't want to do and I want to escape. And my favorite escape is food. Maybe you do video games, substances, whatever. Mine's food. And so chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream, I don't do as much now, but that sweet creaminess surrounding those tender balls of dough. I could luxuriate in that forever. What is it like for you to get to the end of a cone or a cup of ice cream? For me, as I'm getting to the end, I'm strategizing. There's a kind of little desperation creeping in here because it's just about done. But I'm wondering, am I going to make this 3 small spoonfuls or 2 big ones? Will I get those favored balls of dough into just one big scoop and the other will just be ice cream and then it's gone? And for me, there's a sadness to the end of the ice cream, but that's a sadness I recognize. Sometimes I think life is like a series of finishing ice cream cones. And there's the peaks. I'm with a friend I love being with, but a friend has to leave. I play and tell stories and do goofy games with my 10-year-old daughters, but they have to go to sleep or to school. So much of my life is up and down like that. There's things that I love. There's things that I flee, the chores at home, the writing that I'm stuck on. And I'm caught always between the push and pull of all sorts of drama and stories I add in my head. How might you cut through the nature of that life? That drama, the internal chatter, and the cycle, the whirlwind of up and down. To answer that story, I draw on my favorite part of the story of the life of the Buddha. There is no definitive version of this life. The story of his life was passed on for 400 years only as oral tradition. And I'm going to allow myself a little license to invent some dialogue. You'll note that. The Buddha was a historical figure who lived somewhere between the 6th and the 4th century BCE, before the birth of Christ. He lived in what would now be the borderlands between Nepal and India. And I want to imagine his father, King Suddhodana, and how proud he must have been. Oh, Siddhartha, I wish for you the power and the glory and the joy of being king, to have your own kingdom, as you would have done had you been the father of a future king. He sought out, in his day, the best ideas. For him, that was not coming to a TED Talk. That was going to a seer. In some versions of the story, multiple seers. And he turned to the seer, someone who could give advice about the future, and asked, what must I do for my son so that he will be the great king I know he can be? King Suddhodana. Your son may be king, but he may forsake the path of king. If he is allowed into the world as he grows up to see what the world is truly like, he will choose to be a great religious leader. Well, King Suddhodana knew how great it was to be king and wanted for his son that joy and that power. And so, hearing that he must not let his son see the world as it is while he grows up, the king had a pleasure palace constructed, shining walls of gleaming marble, within which the finest musicians of the land would play. The most fragrant and fresh ingredients cooked by the top cooks would be served. What a childhood that must have been. To grow up with outstanding tutors. And it is said that that young Siddhartha was a tremendous student who not only picked up the basics and the academics, but as kings did at the time, was a quick student of the skills of being a warrior. We don't quite know why at some point the king allowed his son out of that palace. So I'm going to imagine for a minute that young Siddhartha, as he was growing, must have asked his father, "Father, I am to be king. I must know my subjects. Father, when can I leave the palace?" And perhaps King Suddhodana answered, "Siddhartha, trust me. You have everything you need inside this palace, and life is good here. When the time is right, I will know and I will let you out." And I could imagine that as Siddhartha grew older and older, he got more and more vehement. He must get out. He must see the world. We don't quite know the circumstances, but we know that by the story, at some point, King Suddhodana finally agreed to allow his child one, or his young man now, one journey into the world, to go out. But the father, King Suddhodana, picked the charioteer, the rider of the chariot, who would lead, picked the route, and had his subjects prepare. Now, you might imagine the subjects were eager to see their future king. And so they lined the street, ready to get a glimpse, cheering 3 and 5 deep. And the day arrived, and the charioteer mounted, and Siddhartha was on, ready to leave. The gates of the palace opened. I would imagine it must have been amazing to leave the palace. Siddhartha had seen the sky and the horizon, but always framed by walls or windows. But how huge the world must have looked, and to trace the bigness of the horizon. As they turned a corner, perhaps, he glimpsed the higher buildings of the capital city. "Charioteer," he may have said, "that must be the capital city, is it not?" "Oh, yes, Siddhartha, that is the city. We are going there. And those things moving, those are your subjects." Oh, how Siddhartha's heart may have opened, amazed that he was about to see the people he would lead. As they got closer, the people indeed were clapping 3 and 5 deep. And Siddhartha, as he greeted his people, saw the first of 4 sights that would change him forever. Charioteer, that man with the white hair, skin wrinkled like a dried plum. What happened to that man? "Oh, Siddhartha, did you not know? That man is old, old." Now, Siddhartha had seen younger people. He knew that there were people who were younger than others. He'd never been allowed to see a truly old person. As he was trying to figure that out, what it would mean, or that was possible, he saw the second sight. "Charioteer, that man we're passing with all the water pouring down his brow, so pale. Oh, Siddhartha, did you not know? He is ill. He's fevered. Fevered. He lost his health. You can lose your health." And as he was processing that, he saw a third vision he was not meant to see. Far down perhaps one street, there were pallbearers, people who were carrying at 4 corners of a stiff board a dead body. "Charioteer, that man as stiff as the board he is on, unmoving. Did you not know, Siddhartha? That is a dead man. He has lost his life. You can lose your life." And he saw the 4th of the sights. He saw a man, charioteer, that man in the orange robe, nothing but a wood bowl. Who is that? He's so full of joy in his eyes, the light. "Oh, Siddhartha, that is a monk." What is a monk? All he owns, Siddhartha, is the robe on his body, and he begs for food. He does not even have his own food. If no one gives food in that bowl, he is hungry for the day. Why is he so happy? Siddhartha returned to the palace, quiet and sullen. I'm going to fast forward the story a little bit here. Siddhartha did indeed choose to forsake the path of becoming king. Siddhartha was deeply troubled. Life was not as it seemed. What he thought was real was not real. He wondered what was real and true. And so he escaped one night, shaved off his hair, not to be known by others, joined a group of ascetics, of religious people. He wanted answers. What is true and real in life? And he hoped that if he followed these other religious people, if he cut himself off from all worldly pleasure, even stopping eating food, that he would come to an answer. Well, what happened is he almost killed himself I almost starved to death, and recognized this answer does not work. I need a different path. He sat beneath the Bodhi tree and meditated for days on end. And it is during that meditation that he came to an answer that, just a little part of an answer I'm going to borrow from my talk today. One of the things he learned, or came to believe, is that the nature of life is suffering. It's an imperfect translation, but we'll live with it. It's suffering. And why do we suffer? He came to believe we humans suffer because we cling. There's things we want, there's things we flee, but we cling, wishing that the things we want would either never go away or change. But the nature of life, the nature of all things, is change. Nothing is permanent. My ice cream cone, time with friends, people you love, places you live, all can change. What is permanent? Impermanence. But for my time learning something from Buddhism, I would like to suggest one other thing that seems very real to me, which is, besides the reality that we don't know what's going to happen in the next moment, this moment is real. You and I are here. You're sitting listening to me. I'm here grateful to be with you. This moment is real, and we have some power and control over this moment and how we handle this moment. In fact, one way to be more in touch with what is real and true probably is to learn to show up in this moment. I opened trying to model for you my monkey mind, and I lived there plenty of the time. But there are things that we might choose to do that might help us cut through the chatter, cut through the cycle of impermanence and up and down, craving and clinging and wishing for not change, fleeing things we don't like, and being stuck thinking about the past and the future to actually be here. Be in this moment, notice, be with people. Some of the things we might choose to do are practices that come from religions, but you do not need to be religious to do them. So I know that there are Catholics who pray rosary, and that helps them cut through chatter and connect to their Lord. I know there are Christians who go through processes of discernment, which may involve just themselves in prayer or themselves working with their peers. The tradition I know is meditation, and you do not need to be Buddhist. John Kabat-Zinn, Z-I-N-N, wrote a simple and beautiful book, Wherever You Go, There You Are, that is an invitation and a simple manual for how any of us could choose to sit and practice. If you want to get better at something, at violin, you practice and you get better. If you want to get better at showing up in the moment, to have the power and the joy of that, practice. And meditation is a way to practice so that in the rest of your life it shows up. But I'd like to suggest, I don't want to miss that for those of us for whom sitting and meditating is difficult, there are moving meditations like Tai Chi or yoga, and we're looking forward to hearing more about yoga later today, which I have experienced as an opportunity to be in body, but let the physical reality that we're all here in body try and connect me with something deeper or more present. I believe that there's another path. Being with other people in dialogue, being here with each other, creates both a great test, but a great opportunity to show up. I think a simple example of that are people who choose to live their life almost as if they're constantly asking the question, how can I help? How can I help you? Those who live in service, those who show up for other people on a regular basis, by nature, when I do that, I know I cut through whatever the stories and drama are in my head because I'm here with you or whomever I'm helping. Just as powerful as being helped. Some of us need to learn to do that much better. So allowing myself to open up honestly and ask for help and be vulnerable. Jewish mystic Martin Buber said, we glimpse the face of the divine when we open up truly and are with other people. When we take the risk to be honest and authentic, which often is a leap of faith with people. But when we do that, we create the chance for in his view, to glimpse the face of God. And I think, for me, I'm clear, it cuts through whatever I bring to life when I'm with someone else. And it doesn't only need to be situations of help. I was at a dinner party the other night that my wife and I hosted with people we didn't know that well. And one of our guests started explaining his theory on Ferguson and the race riots. And he acknowledged that some of his theory was almost like a conspiracy theory, he said, like 9/11 was a hoax, didn't really happen. And some of what he was saying felt to me like, I'm wondering, this almost feels, some of it feels racist, some of it feels a little crazy, and I was going into my mind. I was doing the monkey mind thing. I'm a host. Is it polite for me to say that? I want to be true to what I believe, and I feel like I must say something. What do I say? I practice meditation. enough that I caught myself breathing, as I do sometimes. And I stopped the monkey mind, like I was just here, this breath coming in and coming out. And I noticed there's actually a person in front of me. Instead of being in my head, I had a little bit of that spirit of, how can I help? I have a little humility. I may have misunderstood. I may not have right answers either. So I tried to actually keep listening. And I spoke my truth. I did the best I could, clearly and forcefully, but with compassion, not to win an argument, to name how I saw race playing out. In America at large, probably in a police department, the dynamics that might explain some things. And I showed up. I was present. I got what I got from him, and there's some gifts in it. He gets to choose what gifts he gets from me. So I am grateful for what I have learned about the possibility that we can, even in moments that aren't help, that are stressful, that used to send me into all sorts of story, that I can show up. A final question that some people find helpful is to ask the question, not how can I help, which is a beautiful one, but what is this? As anything comes up in life, if you can keep noticing your surroundings, seeing more than you see, sitting here in silence and hearing something more than you hear, you're here. You've shown up. You're not stuck. So in sum, life can be a series of internal chatter and distraction, leaping from tree to tree of all sorts of different drama that we create and impose on what is real and outside of us. In its way, that's real. In its way, I think that's unreal, and deprives us the chance to show up. This moment, my finishing my ice cream cone, is just one more moment. Yeah, there's still sadness for me. At my best, I finish, and then I can ask the question, what's next? And there's another moment there, and that moment will open up, and it will have its power, its poignance, its beauty, its thing to teach me. I would wish for each of you the opportunity to practice in whatever way fits you, and perhaps that means with other human beings, showing up and connecting and actually being real in ways that cut through the chatter. It is possible to do that. There are ways human beings have passed on through generations that still allow us to be present, to live a life that's here and not stuck in the past and in the future. Wishing you all a string of vivid, growthful present moments. Thank you.